Who is it, Ash? Who is it? Who is it? Do you think it's a crank? Do you think it's a CR250 crank? Move, 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 move. Sorry, sorry, sorry. Stop. Nope. Get back. Get back. Get back. Oh, it is. At least I hope it is. I guess we'll find out. What's in the box? What's in the mystery box? What's in the mystery box? Hey guys, let's find out what's in the box. It says Ken O'Connor Racing on it. Look at all this newspaper. Oh, it's a box inside of a box. Look at that. Dude, your nose is so cold. Look at that. Oh. Wow. Fresh crank. Wow. Put a Wasner rod in there. Man, I am beyond stoked. That is a real Wasner rod. That's way cool. I swear to God, I thought this was gonna be a Pro X. Gave me a wrist pin and everything. Let's go, let's get to work, baby. Let's go. Okay guys, so it is 9 degrees in my shop right now, but I'm still gonna go ahead and start assembling this engine, right? So as you can see, I did get my brand new crank from Ken O'Connor Racing. Thanks, Ken, you're the man. But yeah, it's cold as hell here. I got everything ready to go on my bench here. I'm gonna start by putting this here crank, this case here. So yeah, this might be a little long, so I'm gonna go ahead and get the transmission in there and the crank, and we'll have her buttoned up. So stay tuned, let's get going. If you couldn't already tell, this is the crank I got from Ken O'Connor Racing. Got a Wasner rod in it. I am so stoked on that. And then I got this brand new, well, not brand new, but you know what I mean. It's all bead blasted, looking beautiful. And we're gonna put a crank in this bitch. Let's go in there just so it'll be easier to basically install. And then we're gonna do the same thing on the inside of this bearing here. There we go, just a little bit, no big deal. Just enough to give it a little bit of a lubrication to put in there. So we're gonna take our crank, I'm gonna put it in here, make sure it's this side, not any other side. Okay, then we're gonna get it in there. As you can see, it's a tight fit. So we're gonna use our crank puller now. These, a couple of these. And I actually had to get a longer bolt than what the clutch, or I keep saying that, the Tusk crank puller comes with. This is a 50 millimeter long M10 by 1.25. So what we're gonna do, hopefully you guys can see this pretty well. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take this, we're gonna put it in there, and then we're gonna spin it onto the crank itself. Okay, so then we are going to, let's see, we're going to thread this on there onto the little collar. There we go. Make sure this is up, or at least will be when you start pulling it through. Let's see. There we go. And you got this guy here. This nut. I believe this is 26 millimeters. I gotta double check that one. Let's see here. It's gonna hit this right here, so I'm actually gonna use the chopsticks. At least that's what I call them. There we go. Screw that down a little bit so it's tight. .27mm, keep the crank arm up, and then pull it. There we go. Perfect. Spin that off of there. There we go. Pull this off. And boom, step one complete. Look at that. Spins on there, beautiful. All right, step one complete. Step two is gonna be getting the transmission inside the cases here. I wanted to go ahead and put the transmission in the correct order and put it in this video so you guys can see. There's a washer here. Make sure that this is facing outwards, or I guess this solid face is facing outwards towards the sprocket. Let's see, you got a washer there. There's a washer on the back side of this. I know this has been frustrating in the past, for me at least, to not be able to find something that kind of shows where everything lines up. Gonna go ahead and lube up the shaft, no pun intended, right where it's supposed to seat, and I'm also gonna lube it in here. This is my least favorite part of the entire rebuild, so say a nice little prayer for me. So we're gonna try to get these two. Okay, so I got the transmission in there, all right. Let's go ahead and put the shift forks in. We're gonna keep them off to the side for a second. The right one marked 4R is going to go on the bottom. The one that's marked 4L is going to go on the top. Go ahead and put the shift drum in there. This part goes downwards. Come on, baby. And then we'll go ahead and put the shift forks in their respective positions. Let's see, there we go. And then we'll go ahead and put the shift shafts down in there. There's one. And the other. Now we're ready to put this thing back together. Don't forget this guy and the gasket. Make sure you test your transmission before putting the cases back together. Turn it while you shift it. I'm trying to do this so you guys can see it. Everything seems to be shifting pretty good. Just for clarification, I had this gear installed incorrectly. I had it flipped over. So make sure that the flat side is facing out. Next, we're gonna put our dowel pins in. One goes right here, and the other one goes right there. I am going to put some anti-seize on there just for safekeeping. Before you put this case back in, you need to remember, you gotta put the breather tube back in there, okay? I've done it where I buttoned the motor up and forgotten the breather tube. So that breather tube goes right there on the other half of the case. While editing this video, I realized that I missed one critical step here. In addition to this rubber O-ring here, there's another piece of rubber that sits inside your case right there. So I had a 1999 CR250 motor that I had in storage, and I figured I'd just take this out and show you where it went. So don't forget that before you put your cases back together. Next, we're gonna go ahead and put the gasket on here, but before we actually put it on, I'm gonna go ahead and put assembly lube, or you can use grease, you can use whatever, just to make sure that if you do have to take this is a paper gasket, so if you do have to take it off again, I mean, it will just come off, it won't rip. Just all around the edges like that, and then just use your finger and spread it out. Now that I've got a bunch of assembly lube all over the sides of that, I'm just going to go ahead and put this on here. And then you're going to need to cut this later on, obviously. All right. Cool. Also, there is a little like O-ring right there you need to put on there before you button up the case. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put the case back together here. We're going to start by getting this all set up and inside the transmission. There we go. Okay, that looks like it's pretty solid. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and put this right here over the crank. We're gonna put this retainer, just thread it on there just a little bit. This is a Tusk crank puller / installer. We're gonna take this and thread it right onto there, all the way down. You're gonna put your 2 rods right there evenly. Then you're going to take your puller, slide it over the top of that. There we go, slides down. Take your nut, thread it onto the top of this. Okay. We're going to go ahead and get this started. Make sure to watch this side over here. Make sure it doesn't start walking on you, or this side is the only one that starts going down. You're going to want to take your Deadblow, hammer it. Yeah, it's like a start-stop type thing. Looks good. Yep, and there it goes. Looks good. Crank still spins. Transmission turns. That's great. And just like that, we got the cases back together. We got a new rebuilt crank in there with a Wasner rod. We got all new bearings. Transmission is just buttery smooth. The crank's even balanced. Like, look at that. Ken O'Connor Racing, fellas. That guy is the man. So I'm going to get all the bolts back in here, and then I'm just going to trim up the paper and then keep working on this build. We're on the second half of this. Okay, so I got all the bolts in there now, and I'm just going to start trimming off this paper, getting as close as I can to the aluminum as possible. We're going to go ahead and install the shifter stopper arm here. You got your spring here, and then under that is a washer, and then you got the arm itself, and then of course your nut. You're going to want to hook it over like this, and it should sit there like that. It doesn't give me a torque spec on this. I'm going to put like a dab of Loctite on there just for, you know, safekeeping, I guess. Just a little bit. So I got it all ready to go there. Okay. Okay, get that started. And then it's a 10 millimeter. Just give it just a little bit of snugness, that's all. There we go. Now we're gonna do the shift drum center bolt. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put the dowel pin in this tiny hole here. I'm gonna do this with a needle nose pliers. Put it right in that hole. There we go. I hope you did not lose that. Now we're gonna go ahead and move this arm back this way, and we're gonna line up the dowel where that little indentation is and get it on there. Easier said than done. Then, is that gonna stay there? I've already done it, but I'm gonna hold it on there. I'm gonna put some Loctite on the center bolt here. Right there, as you can see. And then thread it in there. Okay. And this is a 12 millimeter socket. Okay. Now, this calls for 16 foot-pounds of pressure. I've got a good proto torque wrench. If you don't have a good torque wrench, I would not suggest doing it and just do half, you know, hand tight. But again, get yourself a good torque wrench if you don't already have one. Proto, these are like 200 bucks online. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and install this external shift mechanism here, if it'll let me anyways. This is like attempt number 8, probably. There we go. All right. Then you're gonna put this guy on there, just right there. And go ahead and put the screws in there. All right, we're gonna go ahead and put the shifter in now. Shifter literally goes in like this. There you go. Your shifter's done. Transmission's in. External shifter mechanism's in. Everything's in. Heck yeah. Let's keep going. We're almost there. Okay, let's do the Kickstarter real quick here. You're gonna want to put some Loctite on this guy. Goes in just like that. Got my Kickstarter gear right here. This part goes behind the retainer. So this goes behind the retainer. You're gonna pull it all the way around and put it right into this hole. Secure it right down in that hole. There you go. Got your Kickstarter gear all ready to rock and roll now. There you go. Also, I should probably notate, there's a little sleeve that goes on the back side of it. That sleeve can go on first, then you can put your idler gear on there. And then you're going to put the little sleeve that goes on the back of your clutch basket. You're going to put it right on there. Okay, we're going to go ahead and install the clutch side crank seal. So I've already got it greased up a little bit with some Maxima. You just want this flush against the crankcase. You don't want it any further. The way I do this is grab a big enough socket if you got one, and just lightly tap it in. So I've got this seal driver. It seems like it's going to be big enough, but I'm just going to do my best to tap it in. I don't know if this is going to work or not. I did grease the sides of the... Okay, so that's slightly working. Like I said, you don't want to drive it in too far. Okay, we're getting closer. If you guys got a better tool than I do, please use it, because this is ridiculous. After driving it in for, you know, the majority of the way, I'm going to move to just a punch. Just go around and lightly tap on it. Okay, so I got it all in there. It's nice and flush, just about anyways. That's about as far as I want to push it anyways, because there's nothing worse than getting one of these in there too far, especially on the other side. Next, you're going to take your collar that you're going to put right in there, hollow side down. You're going to stick this Maxima grease on it, and away you go. Greased up nice and deep like. Yeah, boy. Look at that, nice and greasy. Throw it on there. Come on. Not enough grease. Can never have too much grease. I sound like Joe Biden right now. Yuck. Look at all them little kids. All right, enough horsing around. Maybe we should grease the lip a little bit. We'll do that too. Maybe, just maybe, I should have put this on beforehand. There you go. All right, we're gonna go ahead and install the clutch. But before we do that, I'm just gonna put a little bit of assembly grease on this bearing here. That's just how I was taught to do it. Also, before I do this, I'm going to go ahead and put the primary drive gear on there. You'll see why here in a bit. So this just goes on just like that. And we're going to throw on our thrust washer. Sometimes they say out, like which side faces out. This one doesn't, so I don't have to. Then I'm going to put my inner clutch hub on there. Okay. You got your thrust washer. You got a lock washer. You're going to bend these tabs. I'm reusing this because it's in good shape, but a lot of times people don't do that. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to thread it on there, and then we're going to torque it. Okay, so in order to torque this down, I'm going to need to grab it with something here. I have a clutch holder tool here. All right, I'm going to torque down the clutch hub. This is 60 foot-pounds. There we go. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and torque the primary drive gear here. I'm using a Motion Pro gear jammer for this one. This is 70 foot-pounds because it is a 1994 CR250. Just wanted to throw this in here. Primary drive gear bolt. So you got 92, 93, 94, and then 1995 onward. In that order. So 1992 to 93 gets 33 foot-pounds, 94 gets 70 foot-pounds, and 1995 onward gets 47 foot-pounds. Just so you know. Hey, real quick, guys. So when you do torque down this primary drive gear, this might produce a little bit of, like, not like friction, but it will make your engine a little harder to spin just because it's a fresh seal. So I took everything. This was driving me crazy. So I took all this off a couple of times, and I took the collar out and it spun great. So if you look online, there's nothing wrong with it, but it definitely like spooked me a little bit. So just so you know, if it does, is it a little more difficult to spin the motor, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. They're just tight. It's a new motor. It's got to get broken in. Before I forget and I start putting the clutch back together even more than I already have, I need to start bending these tabs on this washer against this nut. It's just a safety precaution, I suppose, but yeah, do your best to just pry it up. I wouldn't suggest, you know, like prying it up against something like this, but you know, you'll figure it out. Clutch is back in. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and put the rod down the center of this here. This is gonna be connected to your pressure plate, and here is your pressure plate. Then from here, we're gonna go ahead and start putting the springs in there. When you tighten these up, you definitely wanna do like a crisscross star pattern, kind of like when you're tightening up head nuts, stuff like that. So once you get these started, you can go ahead and use an impact. So you're gonna want to tighten these up kind of in like a star pattern. You do not want to torque these. There is a torque spec for this, but there's absolutely no reason for you to use it. I've busted off one of these bolts in the clutch hub before on another bike, and it was very frustrating. Just finish them off with a wrench. Just like a quarter turn once they're in the bottom. And that does it for the clutch. And that's all installed. This is the home stretch of the bottom end. Don't forget the governor, by the way. There we go. Next, we're going to put our dowel pins in up top for our cylinder. I usually just dip them in some anti-seize so they don't stick in there so bad next time I need to pull the jug. Okay. We're going to do these. They're going to go right there and right here. I have a Tusk water pump kit, so super cheap. They have good parts. I use Tusk on a lot of stuff. Okay, so these seals are going to face back to back like this. So I believe this one, is it this one? So this is going to be your oil seal. This one, which is the bigger one, is going to be your water seal. Might have some luck with a socket, just pushing that in. This is a 21mm socket. Looks like that fits right in there. Just push it down. Okay. Next, you're going to put your bearing in there. So according to the manual, you're supposed to press this bearing in. So I've got the bearing started into the hole there. I've got a 21mm socket. I'm going to try to just go ahead and press this in. Oop, this is a little tricky by myself, so bear with me here. So getting this bearing pushed in is kind of a chore just by yourself. I ended up using a bearing seal driver here out of my box behind a piece of wood. I started using sockets, however I don't believe that was the right move, so just a heads up. So just press it in until it bottoms out. Okay, next is the water seal. I'm actually going to put a little bit of grease on the lip here, just to make it a little easier on myself to get in there. I probably should have done that with the other one. So again, I'm going to use a seal driver and just kind of till it bottoms out. There you go. Next, we're going to put the impeller shaft in. So once you get the impeller blade off, there's going to be a brass washer you're going to want to hold on to. That's going to go between the blade and the shaft itself. So according to our manual, we just put the shaft right in there and it slides right in, just like that. So you got that on this side. You're going to put your washer back on there, and you're going to spin your impeller on there as well. Okay. Next, you got another washer that sits on the back side of the impeller next to the gear. And there you have it. We're going to go ahead and tighten this up on... We're going to go ahead and tighten this impeller up. So according to the manual, this impeller blade is torqued down to 9 foot-pounds. I do not use a torque wrench if it's anything, you know, as low as that. So just don't do that. So just get it good and tight. Putting dowel pins in here. Just put a little bit of anti-seize on there before you put them in. They should slide right in though. Then you're going to go ahead and take your gasket. You're going to put one here. I always put just a little bit of grease on here just in case I have to take it apart. I'm paranoid. I seem to take things apart a lot. So I'm just going to put a little bit of grease, just a little bit of a film on there. That way if I ever have to take this off in the next, you know, couple hours, I'll do it. It won't rip these up. Okay. Next, we're going to put our plate on there. Again, going to put a little bit just on the outside. There we go. Just enough to those go. There we go. Okay. Then we're going to put our plate, then we're going to put our water pump cover on there. And from there, we're going to put the bolts in. Don't forget your power valve. We're going to start putting our top end back on there. You don't need to put the inner clutch hub back on yet, but you're going to want to put your wrist pin in there and then just move it around like that with some assembly lube, of course. You can use 2-stroke oil as well. Piston on, make sure you put a whole bunch of assembly lube in that crack right there between the crankshaft and the bearing. That will help with first startup. So just go ahead and make sure you do that. Theoretically, your 2-stroke oil should lubricate it, but it never hurts to have more assembly lubrication. I'm using a Pro X piston kit with this build here. Comes with a wrist pin, piston retaining clips, obviously a piston, and some rings, as well as a cute little Pro X sticker for your toolbox. First thing you want to do is figure out which side's the intake and exhaust side of this piston. I'm going to be using this side, so I'm going to actually flip it over and put this piston retainer clip in on this side. This is kind of tricky. You're gonna have to get it into this little groove right here, right in there. Hopefully you can see it. And without it flying across your shop. So these are one of my least favorite things to do. I always try to put one of the sides in kind of like that, like in next to this hole, and then just work it in going to the sides there. Helps if you have a little tiny screwdriver as well, like I do. Okay. There we go. She's in there. Just for clarification's sake, this gap in your piston retainer clip, you're going to want to move it with a tiny screwdriver all the way to the other side of the piston, like over here, just away from either one of these holes in the piston, or these gaps in the piston. Okay, we're going to put our rings on next. There's going to be a little mark on these rings, and you're going to want to have that facing upwards. Doesn't matter which ring you put these on. This is a 2-ring piston. It is a 250, so let's see here. There's a tiny little T. It's gonna be so hard to get. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a tiny little T that goes up. I'm assuming that means top. Before we install these rings on the piston, we have to measure the ring end gap. So I've got my piston. I'm just gonna slide it down in there, like kind of like that. And then I'm gonna take my piston and I'm going to slide it down about, a quarter of the way or so. Maybe a little further than that. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to take my feeler gauge. According to the manual, this is technically not an OEM piston, but it's a Pro X piston. They say it's pretty darn close. So I'm going to go with that. It's also a cast piston. Let's try 50 millimeters. The, let's see, new limit is, let's see, 40 to 55. So we'll start with a 50 just in case, because this is a used piston. Okay, so it goes in there, no drag really. We'll try a 53. Okay, getting quite a bit of drag there. Still goes in. So this ring end gap is in spec. I don't have to file it or nothing like that. So let's go ahead and get this installed onto the piston. We're gonna go ahead and install the rings on the piston. I got my mark on my piston ring facing upwards. Before I put it on there though, I am gonna take some 2-stroke oil and put it in the groove there, just so it gets some lubrication. I'm using Yamalube. I've used Yamalube on everything, so. Okay, facing up, we're gonna put the bottom one on first. Oh, come on, baby. Okay, so we got the first one on there on the bottom. Again, can't stress enough, make sure that that is facing upwards. Okay, there's the mark. Okay, there you go. Piston rings are on the piston. Ready to go. We're going to go ahead and put our piston on the crankshaft now. I'm going to put 2-stroke oil on the wrist pin. There we go. And we're going to put the piston with the intake side facing the back of the motor. And then, there we go. Okay. And then from there, you're just going to put the piston retainer pin on there the exact same way I showed you in the first place. It's just a little more tricky because you got the wrist pin bearing there. Next, we're going to put the power valves into the cylinder. I've already got the actuator all put together, but there is a picture for you in order to assemble it. So I'm going to start by putting a little bit of 2-stroke oil on the governor shaft. That's going to go down here, right there. You're going to put the actuator up through there, through the, we're going to put the governor shaft through the actuator up there, and that's just going to sit on it. If I could get that to work, that'd be great. Okay, so from there, I'm going to take my pin and I'm going to put it through the governor shaft actuator, the governor shaft. Okay, so I'm going to put this pin through the governor shaft there, so that way the actuator doesn't come out. Okay, so next we're going to go ahead and put our flap valve inside there, inside the cylinder. Sometimes, depending on the year, you can put it through the exhaust port, or you can go through the top here like I'm about to do. This is how it sits. It sits flat up against the top of the cylinder right there. Okay, so I'm just going to turn it upside down. So then you're going to go ahead and you're going to take one side of the power valve here. You're going to put one of your rods through there. I'm going to actually put some 2-stroke oil on all of it here. This goes on this side. It's going to go right through the through the flap valve there, so it goes right. Then on this side, you're going to take on this side of the power valve, you are going to go ahead and put this washer, doesn't matter which side it is, and then you're going to take this snap ring. There we go. Okay, after that, you're going to take this part and just screw it on there. On through. On the other side, that is going to, it's going to be right there. So this goes in like that. Here, let's put some 2-stroke oil on there, just for safe measures. And then, so that's on there. You're going to take your bearing, dip this in 2-stroke oil. Okay, you put that right there. Your actuator arm hooks up to, let's see if I can get this to work right. Oh, my bad. You're going to go ahead and put this other rod through the other side, right there. So that just went right through there. And then there's a flat spot on the power valve. You're going to go ahead and take one of your bolts there and just screw it in lightly. You're going to take your other bolt. This goes through the actuator to hold it in place. You're going to, again, just finger tight for now. You're going to take the bolt that goes right here. You're going to take it and put it all the way through. Some people put like Teflon tape on there or something. Some Loctite. Loctite works good for that, just for safekeeping. And after that, you're going to take your power valve cover and put it on there just like that. Obviously, you're going to put a gasket on the other side, but there you go. That's how you install your power valves. Again, I usually put some Loctite on this. I have lost one of those before. Make sure your power valve operates correctly. Look down in there. Make sure you can see it moving. There you go. So my power valves are in there correctly. When you're done, make sure that your power valves are, these two bolts here, are torqued down a little bit. You don't have to go crazy with it. Just make sure they're tight. After you've got your power valve in here, the crow's foot should be facing that way. Should actuate no problem. You're gonna put moly grease in here and in here. Just pack it in there. Once you got that all packed with grease, we're ready to put the cylinder back on. If you've never seen one of these before, all it is just a 2x4 with a little notch cut out of it, and you just stick it right between the bottom end and your piston, so that way your cylinder goes on there nice and straight. Also, on your piston, you're going to want to make sure that the rings are in the correct spots. You can see those little dots on there, I think. Yeah, and so we're going to lather this up with 2-stroke oil as well as the entire bore in here. Okay, let's put our gasket on there real quick. Just like that. We're going to try to squeeze these piston rings in a little bit so they get started. One. You just want to come down straight on it. You don't want to turn it at all. There you go. We got our cylinder back on there all evenly. We're going to torque down these cylinder base nuts. We got our head gasket on there. I've always been told to think of it as tits up, so make sure the bubble is facing that way. We're going to go ahead and put our cylinder head back on there, and we're going to torque these nuts down to 20 foot-pounds. You're going to want to tighten these in a star pattern so you can evenly tighten them down. Starting with this one, you're going to want to torque these in a crisscross pattern. You will need one of these to get to these bolts over here. Make sure you're only doing a quarter of a turn at a time so this evenly tightens up. Next, we're going to go ahead and put our reeds in here. I've got some V-force reeds I'm going to install. So you just put it right on there like so and bolt it up. I got my motor turned around now because we're going to put a few seals in. We're going to put this crank seal in. This goes exactly 2 millimeters below the surface of this case. Then there is a clutch arm oil seal that sits right there. And then there is a seal that sits on the main shaft, as well as this collar that sits in there. And then inside the collar is this O-ring. Make sure you use plenty of grease on the lips of each one of these seals. We got our seals in, we got our clutch arm actuator in there. This motor is super close to being ready to rock and roll. At this point, we are just about ready to put our outer clutch case back on this motor. First, we're going to go ahead and put this seal in there. No big deal. You put the hollow side facing in. we're gonna go ahead and put our inner clutch hub on there. This is kind of difficult. I mean, it's just kind of tricky. Got to get this all lined up. And the Kickstarter usually hangs up for me anyways. There we go. Wow, that went on really great. Just kind of tap on it, make sure it's all on there. Don't have to go crazy. And that's it. This side's done, minus the oil fill plug. Flip it around again. We're gonna go ahead and put the stator in. Next is the flywheel. You're going to torque this to 40 foot-pounds. And you put your ignition cover back on. Don't forget to put your shift shaft seal back in there as well. And finally, your front sprocket. This is torqued to 20 foot-pounds. You can use a clutch holder as a means to make sure this thing doesn't spin. At least that's what I did. And then after that, you put that guy on there and you're done. This thing's got a surprising amount of compression to it. I can't wait to compression test it actually. And that's how you assemble a CR250 motor. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. This was a lot of fun. This isn't my first time assembling a CR250 motor, but definitely this one went the smoothest, I think. So I didn't have to send off the cylinder to like Millennium or Power Seal USA or anything like that. The cylinder bore's great. Everything is pretty good on this motor, so I'm pretty excited about it. It's got a lot of compression. I'm really excited to go ahead and compression test it. Yeah, so I did get my frame back from Dark Matter powder coating, so I think this next week be putting this motor back in the frame, which is really exciting. I might do something with the wheels. I've got lots of other stuff going on as well regarding suspension. I think I'm going to have my guy Sean McAllister at Big 4 Motorsports. He's the RG3 Idaho guy. I think he's going to be doing my suspension for this because I really want to ride motocross with this bike. So anyways, lots to look forward to. So thank you guys for watching my videos as always. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. So I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks again and take care.